So what exactly is at stake for the United States and the world at the G20 this week? Joining me now is Ian Bremmer, president of the Eurasia Group and foreign affairs columnist for Time magazine. What would be your goal if you're the United States going into the G20?
Get through it without, sort of too much agita from all these other leaders. You have to understand that Trump's America First policy and his willingness to shoot from the hip on any issue, which plays very well to his base, plays particularly badly outside the United States. So this will be the first time in history in G20 that the American president will be so personally disliked and mistrusted by a majority of the leaders around the table. And so he's not coming into comfortable territory when he goes and he does his rallies in the United States, the Deep South, Midwest, and the rest. That's very friendly territory. Here, he's actually coming into a table of his peers, whether or not he sees them that way, and it'll be more hostile, and I think that's going to be a challenge.
What do you think will happen in the meeting with President Putin? Do you think it will be sort of a positive outcome, or like what John was saying, the Europeans are concerned there might be a better relationship between America and Russia? Some people in America think, well, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. But a lot of people might think this could actually look bad for Europe, especially if you're one of those NATO countries that's concerned about your future.
Look, it's obviously a very controversial meeting, and here in the United States, a lot of the mainstream press has had their hair on fire about the idea that Trump is going to meet with Putin. I think the meeting is going to go well. I think he could care less about the fact that it's upsetting the Europeans. Trump has made very clear if this is something he wants to do, he's going to go ahead with it. So I think he'll come across looking, from his perspective, from those that like Trump, they'll be delighted that he's continuing to say, I don't care. I'm absolutely meeting with Putin, and I'm meeting him on my terms. I'm not going to do what other people tell me that they should. Now, how much can he offer is an open question.
But what about at the G20? Because you will have China, Russia, South Korea, and the rest of the civilized world. They're all at the table, and North Korea will be very much on their minds. I would imagine that President Trump will try to actually force the issue, at least with those countries. What do you think?
I think that's right. And the Europeans aren't going to do very much. I think that your analysts are quite correct that the only country that can really put a heavy move on North Korea, as Trump put it, is China. And the U.S.
What would that look like?
Well, I mean, they are responsible for about 90% of North Korea's economy. It's both trade and aid. They also have more political connections with the North Koreans than anybody else. But if the Chinese weren't willing to squeeze North Korea when they were posing that kind of a threat in the region, why would they suddenly do it just because they're starting to pose a threat to Alaska or the continental United States? It's very clear that's not going to happen. The magic of Mar-a-Lago between Trump and Xi Jinping was by far the best foreign policy success he's had since he's become president. And yet, over the last few days, we've seen very clearly it's going to unwind. They've had one phone call, the two presidents. It's not gone very well in the last couple of days. They're now going to see each other at the G20. It's by far the most important moment. It's much more important than Putin.
Before I lose you, when President Trump meets with Putin, what should they talk about in regards to Syria?
They're going to talk about the fact that we need to re-engage the deconfliction between our Air Force and theirs so that we don't have mistakes, an American aircraft shooting down a Russian or vice versa. That would be a disaster. It would force confrontation. Nobody wants it. I want to see that. But I'm not in any way surprised that Trump has no intention of bringing up the Russian hacks against the U.S. election, irrespective of what Trump may or may not have done with the Russians historically. It doesn't matter. It's very important to him to show that he had a legitimate electoral victory in the United States. Bringing up the election hacks after Obama did very little is completely against his personal interest. This is a man that's going to put his own interests before national security of the country on that. We've seen that already. He's not going to bring it up.
Well, and of course, and then he could point to the fact that there is an investigation in the country.
Absolutely.
And move forward, and then we're going to talk later in the show about the electoral project commission that Chris Kobach of Kansas is running for.
No political advisor of Trump would conceivably tell him that he should be bringing this up in this conversation with
and also the staff can bring it up if they have to.
If they wish. I doubt it's going to happen.
All right, Ian Bremmer, always amazing.